Bring your trucks out. Awards and prizes were given away. Come out and meet the vendors, meet the manufacturers. Find out what your next wish list item is for your truck.
The holder of the world record in Pro Street, the KC Turbo crew from Mesa, Arizona.
Welcome to the KC Turbos podcast show. We've got Bill with Power Hungry Performance and Andrew Arthur with AA Tuning here. We're just talking 7.3s, turbos, upcoming events. It's very exciting to have you guys out here. You guys came all the way out to Arizona for our little 7.3 giveaway truck that we're going to be talking about here. But let's dive right in. Bill, you want to introduce yourself, a little bit about your company?
Hey, Bill Coron with Power Hungry Performance, and we've had a very strong working relationship with Charlie here for many years. Everybody in the 7.3 tuning industry knows our Hydra chip, knows our company, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and I really can't think of anything I would much rather be doing than the business that we're in.
Oh, and we love our work, right? Andrew Arthur is a custom tuner. I mean, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for those who don't know you?
Yeah, Andrew Arthur from AA Design and Performance Tuning, shop in Spokane, Washington. Been doing custom tuning since 2011 and do performance repair on pretty much everything, but specialize in 7.3 and 6-liter Powerstrokes. Got to get to know you through James and have a working relationship with you guys, and have been down a couple times, done live tuning events with you guys down here.
It's kind of James, but kind of like Bill brought a lot of people together with the Hydra chip and the tuning and the custom tuning. I mean, my first chip on a 7.3 was not a Hydra chip.
Most people's weren't.
But, I feel like the Hydra has really changed the game, and it's not like a new thing, but the fact that you made it open source and opened up the capabilities for other people to put their own spice and own flavor, because a lot of people don't understand, if you get the Hydra chip, you don't have to run Power Hungry's tuning. Now you can, but it's opened up to run other people's tunings, and that custom tuning really tailors to the truck. Coke versus Pepsi. A lot of tunes make the same power. How do they drive? How touchy is the throttle? Where's the shift points at? That's a lot where the custom tuning comes in. And if you buy another tuning option where there's only one tuner writing the tunes, you don't always get to experience all those different flavors, is what I call it. So one of the reasons we love the Hydra, it's not that we don't work with other tuners or other tuning devices, but with the Hydra being open source, it's hard not to try to push people that way, because then we never would have met Andrew Arthur if we weren't doing custom tunes and pushing customers your way, which is
pushing that limit. Yeah, it's always available, which has been, again, Bill was amazing back in the early, late 2000s.
Yeah, 2007, 2008.
Yeah, that's back when I was, on the phone with him getting calibrations for a TS chip and burning them on my computer, and then go through that, and then ended up with Cale Thompson and dealt with him for years, and then we actually flew Cale out for a live tune, and after the live tune, Cale wouldn't give me any updates.
Oh.
He told me on the phone, I'm not going to give you any more updates. You got to call Bill and you got to buy the software because you're smart enough to do it yourself.
and that's fair enough. I mean, there's a lot of people that have made an industry out of this. You, Brian Jellish, Dan,
Matt at Gearhead.
Matt at Gearhead. There's a lot of guys that have started out as customers of ours that we've done tuning for, and then there's like, I really understand the systems. What would it take for us to do our own tuning? And really, it's just buy the software. We give you the binaries to do it. Have fun with it. I would much rather see people do that and provide a much broader availability of service to customers than for us to try to keep everything locked down in-house. That's just not who we are.
I feel like the open source and providing open tunes, you've mentioned if someone wants your tune and they want to open, you're cool with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It has really advanced the industry. Go back 10, 15 years, people were chucking rods. A lot, right? I mean, there used to be a thing, you got to get the forged rod motor. Yeah. Now it's like, PMR, forged rod, doesn't really matter. And I feel like a lot of that's because you guys have helped each other. You've learned from each other's tuning. You guys have taken a platform and learned what they did and added to it and maybe learned where all those limits were. And as you share that, it just makes the whole industry better. All the tuning gets better.
We've argued, for years, everyone complained about PMR motors, when doing blocks. And I kept telling people, there's no reason you can't run 500, 550 horsepower on a PMR engine. It all comes down to the tuning. If bad tuning is going to make them blow, and good tuning will make power and not sacrifice the reliability of the engine. So, and we've seen that. We've seen 550 horsepower PRMR motors, and they don't have a problem.
Yeah. I haven't, in the last 5 or 6 years, I haven't seen a 7.3 chuck-a-rod that I was involved with. When you run a good tuning, it seems much more rare. But early on, I hear rumors of like 50 degrees of timing, and some of those older chips, they were hot. They made a lot of power, but they ran a lot of timing.
Well, they made a lot of power. They had good fuel economy right up until they didn't run anymore.
Right. They ran really good right until they did.
You're also looking at that at that particular time, like that.
We were still
2000,
learning.
Yeah, that 2007, 8, 9, 10, up into the almost 2015. Like the go-to combination was 250 100s and a 38R.
Yeah.
Like, talk about a garbage turbo. That's
it's still around.
They work.
Yeah.
They work great.
There's just better options.
There's just a lot better options. Like, people think that that's a really big turbo, and it's not. It's not a big turbo. It spools well, but 550 is beyond what that turbo is capable of.
Yeah.
Like, you can run it that hard, but it's gonna fail at some point. It may not be real quick, but it's not going to live the life that it can at 350 horsepower where it's meant to be.
Most people I know running a 38R have graded it at some point. The bearings have just gone out of it.
Yeah.
And there's no real good way to rebuild it, buy a whole new char for it.
You're going to buy a whole center section. I have a turbine wheel from the one that I had on my truck, and it's still in my muffler. You can actually wiggle the muffler on my truck, and it
bouncing around
in there.
A constant reminder.
The big dent in the muffler. Yeah, I was going up the pass and coming out of Seattle, going up Snoqualmie Pass, and shifted down into third gear, and he went, and that was it. It's a lot of smoke because it pushes a lot of oil into the very hot exhaust.
Fortunately, it pushes out the exhaust, not the intake.
Yes,
But a very different story.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Don't want to run
hurt
away
anything.
on you.
The fire department did show up though. They thought that I lit it on
That
fire.
much smoke. Wow.
Oh yeah, it was. Well, I mean, you're figuring it's gallons of oil because it's your turbo feed line is
right off the main
oil galley. So it's got 60 psi when you're at speed running into that turbo. So if it loses, the only thing is the bearings holding it back, and it literally comes off, the shaft broke and it's down the tailpipe, and all of that oil went down the tailpipe, and it's 1300 degrees when it downshifted. So it's instantly on fire. Like, I remember looking in the mirror and seeing a 4-foot flame before it turned into smoke. Like, I could have lit some stuff on fire. It was fortunate that it was in the fall. So it was actually October when it happened. So there wasn't anything dry, thank goodness, because it could have been a bad day.
Arizona would have been a real bad day. Any time of the year in Arizona.
I don't know. It's because Arizona's hot, but there's not really anything to light on fire. It's all sand.
Sand and rocks.
Well, y'all have come a long ways. The 7.3's come a long way. Bill's probably tired of hearing me tell the story, but I like to tell the story of how I met Bill. Didn't even know who he was. I was looking at a 7.3 for sale. It was here local. It's probably 15, 16, maybe 17 years ago. I don't remember exactly. I was driving a 7.3, and I took it for a test drive, and it was pre-Hydra, and it had some sort of tuner up in the corner. I looked similar to the Fickum tuner, but I remember it was a little tiny...
It was the old Edge Evolution.
Okay, yes. Mm-hmm. And the guy was like, yeah, take it for a test drive. I knew nothing about tuning at the time. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, it's on like a Eco Tune right now, but if you turn it up, it makes a lot more power. Took it for a test drive, and I was a little disappointed. And I was like,
I'll just turn it.
I'll just turn it up. And this was not a Hydra that you could shift on the fly. It was like a flashing device.
Yeah.
So I was sitting at a green light waiting to turn left. And, I was sitting there with the key on and went through the menu. And, okay, there's a race tune in here. Select the race tune. Okay, turn key off. All right, turn key off. Turn key on. No big deal. It started progressing. The light turned yellow. The light turned red. I was sitting in the middle of the intersection. It was only at like 10%. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to pull over to the side and finish loading the tune later. So I turned the key off.
Uh-oh.
And went to turn the key on. There was nothing there. I don't know if I bricked the PCM or what. I felt so bad. I called the guy. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm not sure what happened, but the truck's not running anymore, and I'm stuck in the middle of an intersection." Poor guy. He had to get the truck towed back to his house. I told him what happened, and he reached out to Bill. And I don't know how you somehow worked it out over the phone, but that was my first interaction with Bill. 15 years ago, me knowing nothing about tuning 7.3s. Now you can just just turn it up or down. But that was was the first time I ever met Bill, reached out to Bill.
And you're not the only one that's ever done that.
Probably-
I've run into that a couple of times. But
Yeah, boy, have I learned that.
It's not. Yeah.
And now I
Load error.
load tunes in the middle of parking lots, not right at the edge.
Yeah.
You know, or somewhere safe at home in a driveway,
Right.
not right before I have to leave somewhere. You know,
or 50 miles out on a snowmobile trip and decide you're going to change your tunes before you drive home, and the PCM's so cold it won't flash. Which I've had happen to a customer. So.
oh man,
Yeah, I don't think I'd do that.
no.
Although, different platform, I did flash my excursion on our road trip in Cody, Wyoming after we were through the Tetons and up over Yellowstone and dropped into Cody, Wyoming, and I flashed it and it failed to load with HB Tuner. And I went, uh-oh. And I didn't bring my IDS with me because normally I can recover it with you can recover it with IDS. I've done that several times. And I'm like, I didn't bring it with me. I called the Ford store. I called everybody, and I'm
couldn't
like,
get it just to
I couldn't get it just to go through. And it's like, I called one of my buddies back home, and he goes, it says if you let it sit for 45 minutes that it might just take the file. And I'm like, okay. Like I'd been up for 36 hours at this point. I was tired, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to bed. And I got up in the morning, and it took the next flash, and I was like.
A little trick that someone told me, and I've had it work a couple of times, is if that happens, go to load the tune with HP, follow the instructions, and typically when you turn the key forward, it'll start to load and then it'll fail for some reason. Something isn't matching or jiving, couldn't read. Well, what I've been told is that when you turn the key forward, unplug the USB, and then it'll error out and it'll wipe whatever it was on there and blank it. And when it sees it's blank, the next time it'll actually
just do it, yeah.
I've had that save the day a few times.
Yeah.
Personally, so anyone watching that, you could try that.
It's a
trick.
thing, yeah. So as far as the Hydra goes, the fortunate thing about a Hydra on a 7.3, which is the reason we're here, the Hydra, unless you unplug it with the key on, it'll always work. So the other thing that you'll run into is if you go to load files in it and the Hydra's in the truck, if the Hydra is plugged into your laptop, it'll try to do a PCM read if you turn the key on, but it will not allow the truck to fire. So it won't run if you plug it into the laptop.
I've never had that happen before. Well, earlier today on the dyno when the truck wouldn't start.
Yeah, we have customers that'll load files onto the chip and then still leave it plugged in and then go to turn the key on, but the chip's still in file
mode,
transfer mode. And so they're like, my truck won't start yet. Did you unplug the USB? Oh, no. And they do that, and the truck fires up, and everybody's happy. But it's one of those little things that you got to be a little cognizant of.
Happened on the dyno today. We loaded a tune on the Hydra, and I went to start it, and it was like, no. Andrew was like, did you unplug the USB?
Yep.
And it was the USB. So
it happens.
Yeah, it does.
I know it because it happened to me.
But it's a very simple mistake, and it's an easy fix. Unplug it.
Speaking of flashing in the wrong spot, makes me think of Cameron and the DT466 testing, trying out the Orion tuning for that, which was incredible. We haven't even loaded up the hottest tune yet, and we've cut 11 seconds off the 0 to 60.
38 to 27, and you hold the record for the fastest.
That's right. I did
60.
beat Cameron by 1 second. I did a little bit of a boosted launch. Yeah, 2
Now, the interesting is because that transmission, because it's a manual automatic kind of thing, is it will not add any power until it's started rolling about 1 or 2 miles an hour and the clutch is fully engaged, and then it'll start to pull. So doing a boosted launch actually kind of bypasses that a little bit. So as soon as you let off the brake, it immediately had power. So it was
almost like engaging.
Just slipping the clutch a little bit.
Well, probably not good for the clutch.
Not great for it, no.
Yeah, so we were testing.
Well, we would do that too many times.
But it's testing.
We were doing the 0 to 60 yesterday, and we had a little parking lot and then a big open road. There was a little bit of traffic. It was rush hour. But
Guy on a
big
bicycle,
giant big giant parking lot.
Yeah.
And Cameron was driving, and we went to go load a tune. He drives right past the giant empty abandoned parking lot, and he pulls right up to the edge of the parking lot, nose 6 inches from traffic, sticks it in park, looks over at Bill and says, load the tune. And I was like, did you want to park in the big parking lot?
Nah.
He was like, no, it'll be fine. We've been doing this all day. And I was like, okay.
Neat.
So, things don't always go perfect when you're loading a tune, and it didn't load right the first time. And Cameron went to go, and it rolled like 6 inches forward. And then he was like, oh, the tune must not have loaded right. It's not.
I got no pedal.
Something's wrong, yeah.
And now we're like sticking out into traffic, and Bill's like, well, just put in reverse and back up real quick. So we tried reverse 6 more inches out into traffic. Just kidding. Bill got it all taken care of. It loaded just fine, but not the ideal spot to pick to do a flash tune as you're rolling into traffic in a giant moving truck.
So the lesson here is always pick the safest place to
always pick it. Not 50 miles out snowboarding or in Wyoming while you're freezing your balls off.
Yeah. Actually, it wasn't that cold in Cody, but it was. We were a long ways from home, and I didn't bring all my tools with me. And that's the other problem. Like, you got to bring the stuff with you if you're doing it. So
you do travel a lot. You like to do that. One of your favorite things is to go live tune truck, right? Right? I mean,
go everywhere.
You come all the way to Arizona from. Where are you from? Spokane, Washington. Just to tune a couple of trucks. I mean, I think we lined up like 10 trucks here at the shop, and you came into town, brought your family with you, and just hung out and tuned truck.
The last time when we came down and I did the live tune with you guys, I actually went to Spanish Fork, Utah first, and I did a live tune in Spanish Fork. I did 13 trucks in Spanish Fork, and then I drove down. So I drove from Spanish. That's when we did the dyno on my truck.
That's right.
And we made 415 horsepower with a small nozzle AD injector.
It was impressive.
It did well, and it made it a 3,800 mile round trip from home back to home.
And live tuning is overrated and underrated. And here's why I say that. Right. I have people that reach out to me all the time, actually local guys sometimes. They're like, oh, I need to find someone to dyno tune my truck. Got to have the dyno, got to be on the dyno, got to live tune it. It's like, well, why? Well, I want to make sure they're doing it right. From my experience, most guys in the 7.3 world, they know the max ICP, max pulse width, max timing. That's where the max power comes from. Max power, I've taken tunes from the most popular guys, actually just today, and then put it on the dyno. Looks almost the same on a dyno graph, but
on a graph
on the street, completely different
truck.
Coke versus Pepsi isn't close enough. It's like Coke versus Dr. Pepper versus Pepsi versus root beer.
Yeah.
In the way that these things drive, because some people like a touchy pedal, some people don't. Some people like a little more oomph down low with smoke. Some people want as clean as can be. Some people like to lug in overdrive. Some people don't. And that, to me, is where live tuning makes the biggest difference. People think it's the dyno, and it's not. They already got that max power number dialed in. It's how the truck drives on the street. So if any of you guys are looking for live tuning, make sure they street drive your truck. That's where I think it makes the difference.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done since I've been doing live tuning, and it's been going on 25 years, in doing live tuning, is I've always loved doing it on the street, and I've always loved doing it with the person driving the truck the way they're going to drive the truck, because that way I know they're going to be happy with what they get. I can tune it with me driving the truck, and it's not going to be the same thing, because I'm going to tune it the way I like that it feels. So that's really, if you're going to do live tuning, that's the way to do it. If you want to dyno it, great. That's going to have a horsepower number, but that's just bragging rights. That's not what you're going to need day to day.
Can't have bragging rights with a 7.3.
I'll settle down. Settle down.
You can have bent rods.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Or you can have shattered.
Maybe some guys make a little bit more power for a little bit of time, but then they chuck the rod.
But eventually, but the live tuning, it's absolutely the only way to get it. So it dictates to the way that every person drives. And like you said, you always want the driver, the person that's going to be driving the truck, to be driving with you. So if you live tune a truck, if I live tune it the way that I drive it, it's not the way that you're going to drive it or the way he's going to drive it. You'll end up with shift flares and weird things that happen because everybody just dictates the pedal a little bit different. So, and you can find weird nuances. And that's the thing about custom files versus live tune files. Like custom file, it's a really good indication of how the truck's going to drive, but you can set up a 2-3 shift and then a lockup, and you can change all these little small things when you're driving with somebody, and they don't even know it. Like most of the time, they don't even realize that I'm making differences. And it's not big, but it's just that thing. And then all of a sudden, they're like, "Man, this drives so nice." And it's the best thing when you're done, and the guy's just got a big grin, and he can't stop smiling.
Yeah,
that's the best part about doing that is when you're done, and somebody's like, "Man, this is awesome," and every time, and it's without fail, it's awesome every time. And that's what makes it so much better than just a standard custom file. Because a standard custom file, you get the shift close shifting.
Well-rounded tune, but
it's
not
a well-rounded tune, but it's not. And again, you're going to get the same power. Like it's not like all of a sudden I'm going to come out, you're going to fly me out, and you got a truck with 250 100s and T4 or a nice charger. They're only going to make a certain amount of power. They're going to make in that 500 to 550 range, depending on how well the truck is set up and your supporting modifications. They're going to make right in that range. That they'll break 500 horse or be right at 500 horse. A 500 horse 7.3 is a respectable number for a truck, and they flat get down. And I'd put it up against any of the new trucks, and it'll get there every time. It might not get the mileage because it's a big dumb 2-valve, but I like them.
You like the big dumb 2-valve?
I do like the big dumb 2-valve. It's just
you're not
fun
putting
engine.
urine in the tank. And
Right. Yeah, you don't have to add anything to it. You can add some stuff like if you really get hard up and you got oil with you, you can dump that in the fuel tank. It'll burn oil.
It'll burn anything.
It'll burn transmission fluid.
Load me up.
You literally can. It'll burn anything.
That's one of the reasons the 7.3 is so sought off after. It's not picky with fuel.
Right.
It's basically pre-emissions, although there's still emissions in like the tuning and the tables. But what we mean by that is no EGR, no DPF,
Right.
no DEF,
No
cats, none of that makes it more reliable. I mean, 7.3s, people joke that they didn't make enough horsepower to hurt themselves.
Right.
But although some of that may be true.
They made the most
but they
horsepower
also
on the
didn't
market
have as
for a
many-
while.
They did. They were legendary back in the day. They still
When they
are
came out,
legendary.
yeah.
But without all that emissions equipment on there, they're so sought after right now. I know people that had newer trucks, got
And have
tired
gone
of
back.
replacing all that, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to go get a 7.3, and I know it'll last me forever. So we've seen 7.3s go up in value. People, big 7.3 guy, and I go to a lot of these events with 6.7 guys, whatever, 6.4 guys,
Right.
a lot of the modern technology, and they're like, you're still doing 7.3 stuff? They're like, are there 7.3s still out there on the road?
250
Biggest business
million.
We have. We do
It's a
more
huge
7.3
number.
stuff than anything else. And our 7.3 market's still growing because it's such a big fan base. You don't accidentally drive a 7.3 these days.
Well,
no one falls into a 7.3. It just had to buy a truck.
Right. And it's worldwide, though, too. Like, you look at you're shipping stuff to Australia. I've got customers in Australia, Russia, you name it. Like, they're
Norwegian countries, Finland,
those trucks are literally around the world. And people will contact you from around the world. I send tunes to people in Russia and in wherever. Like, they're all over the place. I've done tuning for all kinds of guys. I got a couple of guys that are in Australia that are just, and they have some wild trucks, and they don't care.
all
I don't
around
even know
the
where they get
world.
parts.
Well, and the nice
It's
thing,
wild.
and the nice thing, about the 7.3 is, that's why we put Summit 7.3 together, was to build the community to let people know that there are people still making tons of parts for these applications, and there's a huge fan base behind it. There's a lot of young people are inheriting trucks from their dad or whatever, or just
grandpa
buying an
passed away,
OBS, getting into their first truck, and they've been a Blue Oval fan for whatever. And having a community like that together, to help bring the businesses together, so that we all know what we're all making. So we know what you have on the forefront for turbos. We know what Full Force or anybody else is making for injectors, and provide that information to the customers and let them know that there are still tons of products out there and new stuff being developed all the time for these applications.
And I want to take a step back. A lot of people have never heard of the Summit 7.3, but there's no Summit 6.0 that I know of, or Summit 6.4. It's literally an event for 7.3 guys. Yeah. And like you said, some of the best in the industry show up. Many of the best, most of the best, hopefully all of the best. If you guys are watching this and you haven't heard the 7.3, look it up. Summit73.com.
Summit73.com. And we're having our second event in March, March 27th, 28th, and 29th. We're having 2 days of classes and training, speakers on business development classes. And then on that Saturday, it's going to be open to the public, so we'll have a big car show. All the manufacturers can actually sit and talk to customers that are focused on the 7.3.
Yeah, because you can go to a lot of diesel events, but oftentimes it's like, well, where's the stuff for the 7.3? Or, there's all this Cummins, and then there's
Cummins,
the Duramax, or the newer 6.7. And I hear a lot of 7.3 guys go to a lot of shows, and they don't get to see.
Right.
But they
don't get the exposure.
All 7.3, the best vendors with the newest parts, the latest and greatest technologies. There's great speakers. It's great networking. Honestly, it's great for the public, but I would say even better for shops. I had a few people at the event last year that came to me and they were like, we really don't work on 7.3s very much. We'd like to do more of that business. And they networked within the industry. They talked. They learned about the products. Bam! Suddenly they're doing more 7.3 work. They're learning more about it.
And that's what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to bring these people together, and also provide business education to help shop owners understand what they're missing. Shops that don't have websites, they don't have a web presence. And it's like, how do people find you? So learning how to do that, learning how to manage employees, how to market and get people to come in. You get a lot of people that are, I've got more than enough business. Well, if you're not growing, you don't have enough business. And we have to teach people that because they don't know. They're living 50 years ago. So it's been a really our inaugural event last year was absolutely fantastic. We had a really good response from it, and this year's event is going to be even better. We've got some really good speakers and sponsors lined up already. And we've got you coming out. Andrew will be out, and it's going to be a really good event this year.
Coming up here soon in March, the end of March, I believe.
March 27th, 28th, and 29th. And then for people who are in the industry, or on March 26th, we'll be doing 2 separate Minotaur training classes. We're going to do a beginner's class and an advanced class. And Andrew's actually going to be teaching the beginner's class on some of the custom tuning foundations. For people who want to know how to tune their own vehicles.
For people that have never heard of it, what is Minotaur? You said Minotaur class.
So our Minotaur is the tuning software that we use. I use, Andrew uses it. We have a lot of people around the country that use the software, and it is very well set up for tuning the 7.3. It creates the binary file outputs that will load right onto a Hydra chip. We can even take tuning if you've got unencrypted binaries from other companies like old TS files or something, we can reformat those and tune those as well, make adjustments to them, because there's probably still some old files out there that people are very happy with and just want to tweak a little bit.
So we're going to have a beginner course. If you've never tuned a 7.3 in your life and you want to, you got the beginner's course, or maybe you've done it a little bit. Maybe you want to become the next Andrew Arthur and make and sell tunes. There'll be a little bit more advanced course. That's day 1.
Yeah, that's day 1.
And we go into business development.
Day
0. And then there's business development classes day 1 and 2, mostly just for shop owners, or is it open to anyone in the public?
It'll be for people in the industry. So manufacturers, vendors, warehouses, shop owners. If you're in the industry and you either make a product for it or sell a product for it or install a product for it, that's the part of the event that's for you. We're going to help one, get you networking with other people in the industry. And then 2, we're going to do what we can to try to help educate you to better your business and better the community.
And then day 4 or day 3, depending on how you look at it, day 0, 1, 2, 3. The day 3 is open to the public. Anyone can come.
Right.
Just 7.3 owners, fanboys, people that want to get into a 7.3, don't need to be a shop or anything.
Right. Doing a show and shine as well.
Yeah, and we're doing a show and shine. So bring your trucks out and we'll have awards and prizes we're giving away, and come out and meet the vendors, meet the manufacturers. Find out what your next wish list item is for your truck.
I mean, last year, that's where we launched our new Gen 3 KC300X, which has been...
Exactly.
I mean, it literally just got released to the public just recently, but we gave a teaser last year, and we had it at the booth. People came out and saw it.
And they were very excited about it.
People were super excited about it. Lots of videos on it, lots of information. I mean, we put a lot of time and effort and testing into that, and that's the first place anyone ever heard about it. So you can go to the events literally just to hear about these new products.
The amount of information that was at the event last year was mind-boggling. Like, I was overwhelmed by a bit. And that takes a minute. But the amount of information that was there and the amount of networking that got done, like shaking hands with guys that I've known in the industry for, I've been in it for 20 years and known all these guys and followed these guys and getting to meet them, guys like Dennis from Strictly Diesel and seeing you again. I've known you for a while now, and you're probably one of the many that I truly am blessed to call a friend, and Bill, and seeing all these people, but like getting connected at that event saved me on a trip that I went on with my family. Ended up broke down in the middle of Missouri and called Chris Shear from Thoroughbred, and he got me hooked up with a shop, and I was able to fix my car on the road out in the middle of nothing. And, you know, without that networking that happened because I went to Summit,
Exactly.
I'd have been stuck out there and not known anybody and not been able to get done what I did. I met some fantastic people, made some great friends. Like it was impressive.
One of the best events I've ever been to.
Yeah, it was by far. It reminded me a lot of the old days.
Yeah,
Like,
back the early days of the big diesel industry, the early 2000s, we would go to events and everyone would hang out and chat and talk, and it was a good time. And then I don't know, for some reason in the late 2000s, early 2010s, it started getting weird, and this crazy party atmosphere, and it became less about the trucks and more about how silly you could get, and it kind of really hurt the industry for a while.
it did.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was no partying, though, because I remember hanging out at someone's trailer till late out in the night, grilling some steaks and eating some good food in a parking lot. There was no crazy partying, but it was a good time.
Nobody got crazy. We just had a good time, and we sat and chatted, and we acted like adults. It was a really good time. Yeah, that tailgating was probably one of the things that was most talked about after the event, because it was just a really good time to get together and just chat with people and meet new people. Mitch Olson with 7.3 Dipstick. He's one of the most amazing people I've had the opportunity to meet. Gary McClenny from the 7.3 Owners Group.
That's the first time I met Fernando Parajon. I always read it. I don't know how to say it. Yeah.
He's a fantastic guy to work with, and we're excited to have him coming back again this year. So
going to be a lot more people out this year. If you are watching this, you want more information, check out 73summit.com. You can call KC Turbos. You can call Power Hungry Performance. You can reach out to Andrew Arthur. We'll all help you out, but we hope to see you guys there. We will all be there in person, teaching a class. I believe I'm going to be a speaker. So come out. We hope to see you guys there. Please reach out if you have any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's summit73.com.
Summit73.com. It'll be in the description below if I said it wrong, or can someone put it on the screen, around
up here?
A lot of people do things differently. I know there's a few companies out there that kind of just slap a billet wheel in a stock turbo and they call it the latest and greatest. We wanted to do more than that.
Right.
So we went to the drawing board. If you haven't seen our videos on it, check it out. Ground up redesign shares literally nothing. And that's because we put so much effort into learning all the best technologies that exist and bringing them to a 30-year-old platform like the 73.
Applying them all to it.
And then we didn't just release it. I mean, we had prototypes on people's trucks last year at Summit 7.3, and they were driving all year long. We made a couple of small tweaks. You got to work with some of them, and the results were just so good along the way. Everyone reported the same thing: more boost, cooler EGTs, quicker spool, more power. And a few of the guys that ran them, maybe you name if you want, I'd call them T4 nut swingers, and they told me this thing's game changing.
It blows it out of the water.
It blows it out of the water. Anything that they ever ran before. They didn't say it blows T4 out of the water. Well, maybe we'll do some T4 versus the Gen 3. But I've had a few T4 nut swingers that said, now that this is out, I'm not sure I would have gone T4 for those sizes. Because it's just that good. Eric.
Oh, absolutely. Eric Rowe, same thing. He's a T4 guy for sure. He's had T4 on a couple of 7.3s. I have T4 on my personal 7.3 that I daily drive, and I kind of want to take it off just to try it, just to find out. The truck I drove here with the Stage 2 on it, 250 100s, it's phenomenal. It drives phenomenal. It's gonna be hard to beat. For anybody that wants to make in the 500 club range for a drop in, that's unheard of, and it's manageable. Like a drop in that's manageable. You can do it with a drop in. So don't get me wrong. You can do it with a Stage 1 billet, or a stock plus billet, and you can make 550 for a while, and then it's going to break. But that turbo, with the amount of back pressure that it's making and the amount of boost that it makes, and how clean it is, it's game changing for sure. It's not a gimmick. It makes good power. It's clean. It's smooth. It manages EGTs really well. It's going to be really, really hard to beat.
And we're so excited about it. We're doing a 7.3 giveaway truck, which is what you guys were out here helping us do.
Right.
We were live tuning it, swapping parts, testing along the way, and it was pretty cool seeing what made a difference and what didn't make a difference. I was a little surprised on some of the results.
Right.
We ran into a few problems where horsepower actually went down, and then we were able to get it back up. But, we ended up pretty close to our goal of 550. I believe we ended at 547 horsepower, and it was making 50 pounds of boost, 547 horsepower. EGTs were in check. Runs great on the street. I mean,
I don't think I didn't watch it close enough driving it over here, but it was even matting it on the freeway a couple of times. It barely broke 1,200 degrees on the street. It was making hotter than that on the dyno, which is normal.
Yeah,
because you're running it a little bit harder and it's heavily loaded. But on the street, it's very manageable for a decent sized injector. That's impressive. Like,
yeah, it is.
That's normally like that's what you guys would say is T4 territory. You don't get those kind of numbers unless you're running a decent sized T4 turbo, and it's managing as good or better than most of the T4s that are out there.
And that's what we've been striving for this whole, I've been building turbos for a while, and we got into the industry, and at first it was like the 38R. So, we had like our own little twist on the 38R, and a lot of people were like, well, I mean, T4 just blows all that out of the water. And they were right. I mean, it's not that there wasn't a place for the drop-in, but the T4, and it's not the T4 that's amazing. Right. It's the options you get when you go with the T4. The S300, SXC lineup,
of them,
the 400 turbos, even the Garrett stuff, they're amazing turbos. But the technology that you could squeeze into the drop-in turbo, there was only so much you could do. Teeny tiny bearings, tiny turbine
Nobody was doing anything with it either.
The turbine housing options weren't great, and most people were just adding billet wheels, me being one of them. That's what I used to do, is just add billet wheels to them. Well, over a decade,
maybe a little more,
close to 15. We've been changing and tweaking. We made our own turbine wheels, first people in the industry to do that. We put larger inlets on the OBS. We did as much as we could with that base turbo, but it was just holding us back too much. That's why I went with the ground up redesign. Still drop-in.
Yep.
It still fits.
Still bolts on.
Yep.
But none of the parts are the same.
None of it's the same. And it doesn't react the same.
It doesn't. It makes a huge difference. And I honestly think a lot of the technology came from the turbine housing, which we even you were commenting
just looking
earlier.
at it.
Just looking at it, you can see the turbine housing is way different.
When we talked about it at Summit 7.3 last year, that you had it sitting on the shelf, and I'm like looked at it, and I'm like, well, it looks the same, except for this part's definitely different. And you can tell just looking at it. It's like, that's going to flow better because it's the design. Like it obviously looks like it's going to flow better to me. Like, knowing what I know from looking at so many T4 turbos and looking at all the different things that have made like housing sizes, and you look at all of those things, and then you can see it. You can see it on that housing, how tight it is and how well it's going to
flow.
How well it's going to put pressure against the turbine wheel to make it spin.
Right.
And it does, and it works. Like, it's amazing to be able to see that. Like,
you can see it on the outside of a turbo, but we didn't just make a turbine housing to look good. We spent years in development, and you know what that meant? Hundreds of hours on the dyno testing different parts. We had lots of different options for turbine housings, and we tested all the options that we could even find, research, and develop, and we picked the best one. And then we did the same thing with the turbine wheel. And then we did it with compressor wheels, and then we mixed and matched them, and then we picked different sizes. We tested so many different sizes to find the perfect combo, but you couldn't pick all the sizes. We had to narrow it down a little bit.
Narrow down to the ones that have the best gain for and efficiency for money spent.
Right.
Like, you can play semantics on how many different sizes you can do. Like, that's the big thing about like a T4 kit, right?
You get so many options.
You can get an FI turbo, you can get a Borg Warner turbo, you can get a Garrett, you can get, like, everybody makes a turbo, and then you can get the guys that are, whole set, and it's like, they have to have an H2E. Like, there's all kinds of differences in all of those turbos, and every one of them is different, and every one of them flows different.
H2E was the king in the early 2000s. Everybody had one.
Well, the H2E or the HFSB by Pius Bell at Bell Turbo.
What about the BASB?
Right, the BASB, right? That's a 71 millimeter turbo. That was a big single.
Yeah.
That just shows how far this technology has come.
It's come a long way. A lot of those.
Well, and
do
the
they
thing
still
is,
make
the thing is, no, I don't think Pius makes anything
some
anymore.
of them?
Like,
H2E
still
kits
guys-
aren't around anymore either, are they?
No, they're not.
I mean, a lot of that stuff isn't even
a
around anymore.
T4i kit, I don't think you could find one. If you found one, you'd have to convert it to T4. But yeah, it's to see how far that's come. And then, like I said, drive that truck that actually has that turbo on it with a 250-100 injector and be like, I don't think if I was going to put another truck together, I don't know that I would put something else on it.
Well, things have come so far in so many different ways. You don't run the same injector sizes anymore. You don't run as much timing as maybe you used to. No, you're not stuck with a tuner that has only one tuning option. The 7.3 platform has come, I feel like especially in the past couple of years, has come so far.
There's
it's
a huge
different truck.
resurgence in the 7.3 industry.
It's more popular now than it was 5 or 10 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, everyone was big into 6.0s and 6.4s, and because it was the new thing,
a lot of money.
Common rail, and
Hey, I'm a 6.0 guy.
Yeah.
Also,
I am too. I like the 6.0, but you can kick 6.4 can kick rocks. I don't care about that thing. Horsepower for $1, absolutely, but it's only going to run for.
How long till you crack the piston?
Hey,
I mean,
easy.
that's just
The 6.4
if when.
6.4 is the best running diesel ever when it runs.
Yes.
When it's running, I will
agree with you. They are incredible. That is an incredible fuel system. It is an incredible engine. It makes amazing power, but it's not if, it's when. It's going to break. It's not even, I mean, like a PMR 7.3 isn't even in the same category as that. Like a PMR 7.3 with the wrong tuning on it is still not as dangerous as a 6.4 that's just stock.
Yeah. Well, as I say, the 6.4 runs great until it don't.
And there's ways to circumvent that, but we don't want to talk about those.
People are getting away from their newer trucks because they're tired of the maintenance costs on it. You know, the exhaust maintenance. You know, having to have the DPF clean, DEF fluid. You know, they're tired of that stuff. They're tired of the poor fuel economy and just the overall unreliability of a lot of the newer trucks. And they're buying these older trucks now that they know that they can be tuned, and take a 175 or 195 horsepower truck and jack it up to 300, 350 horsepower.
So what are some of the other projects you're working on? Everyone thinks of Power Hungry as like only 7.3s, but you're doing so much more than that now. You're branching out into lots of platforms.
We do. I mean, we're getting back into the 6-liter market. We've had one of our primary products. We were private labeling from Edge, and they discontinued it. And we've been trying to find work with people to get a replacement. So. There was nothing out of box that was going to work for us. So we're actually designing our own, basically a dongle programmer that we can do 6-liter programming, FICM programming, and that'll be out here very shortly. We released the Orion for the medium duty for the Navistars.
Which Navistar?
So it'll be for like the 3 Series and 4 Series, like 3800, 4300, 4700, 4900. So mostly your box trucks, tow trucks, stuff like that. And those will have the T44 engines, the 7.3. Navistar's version of it, DT466, DT530. They're just day-to-day workhorses, but they come so underrated from the factory. They're horrible. 175, 195, they just don't move. And so we
0 to 60 in 38 seconds.
And that was on a 250 horse version from the factory.
And they came lower than that?
Most of them came lower than that.
Oh my gosh.
It's only in 2005, 2006 they actually had power levels that high. Anything before that, 2004 and earlier, 215 was about the highest you were going to get, or maybe the rear 230. But
and they cut 11 seconds off the 0 to 60 with just a tune was incredible.
So at a 250 rating from the factory, and we cut 11 seconds off of it, that's probably putting that right at about 400 horsepower.
The medium duty, there's a really good market for that, and there's a lot of people that really need help on that. And so we're up through 2007 now on the Navistar medium duties. We've got the next iteration of Orion will be coming out ideally next year, mid next year, which instead of being laptop based, it'll be app based, so you can use your phone with it. You can data log on your phone, and there's going to be a lot of neat new features that we're incorporating. So it'll be Bluetooth, wireless. It'll be a really good setup. We're also moving into working on tuning for the Freightliners. We're also moving into 2008 and later. Navistar, Freightliner, the larger Cummins for motorhomes, buses, bigger trucks. There's a lot of stuff that we're really starting to look at the market for, and seeing what kind of products we can develop for it.
Very cool. I wanted to bring up something controversial. Let's list one each worthless mods for the 7.3. And I'll go first.
Here we go.
I hate that crappy 6637 generator paper filter. As a turbo builder, Tractor, I'm sorry. My bad. It is not meant for 7.3. People talk about it flowing so much. No. There's a reason that 6.0, 6.4, 6.7 Cummins and Duramax would never run that filter on their truck. It filters pretty good, yes, but is very restrictive. I can't tell you how many guys suck their intake boots closed, low boost, excess smoke. They take that filter off and throw it in the garbage and their problems go away. But for some reason, it's got this cult following. There are upgraded versions of it that have been made now. But I'm talking about the paper originals that you could get or like Napa. Yeah, that's super cheap from Napa. Stop running those. It's not super cheap. Well, they used to be.
It's super cheap anymore. Now they're not, but yeah, don't run.
They're a much better option for that. Yeah. What about you? Useless mod.
Oh man, I'll probably get flamed for this. With a factory high pressure pump, it might help, but with any modified oil system, I think the crossover line is just a joke. It doesn't. I mean, we're going to tame down your idle cackle. Like, it's a 7.3. Who cares? Like, it's loud. Get over it. Well, like so it doesn't matter. It's be that quiet. Like it's not going to tame the idle down that much. The pump internally it already crosses over the oil lines anyway, so that it equalizes the pressure in each head. That's why there's an ICP sensor on one side, not both sides. It's already equalized. So it adding another line is just adding another leak point. Like I've changed more of those. I've changed more of those back to the factory plugs than I care to admit to. But yeah, I tried it. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you try it?
I tried it. I put it on my own truck because it was the rage. Like, I mean, we're talking 2008, and I had one on my truck, and it was like, it's got to be the best thing since sliced bread. And then I had a big long conversation with Joey at Terminator Engineering, and he's like, you really don't need that. And I took it off because it was leaking, and it didn't make any difference. It's like, well, that's probably not the best thing. So I don't really care for it. Me personally, there's lots of people that say they notice a difference.
I've had people swear by it, so
there's people swear by it, and if you want to put it on your truck, absolutely. I mean, there's no real detriment other than a leak point. And I don't like leak points. I don't like things that can break, but I also travel a long ways. Like we put 7,300 miles on in the land of May and June. So I did have a failure on the road, but just wasn't doing it.
Just keep a 14 millimeter and two plugs in your glove box, just if you have to pull it off.
Well, and if you're driving the 7.3, keep a cam position sensor
and a 10 millimeter wrench, and yeah, there's a few things you need in the box.
Bill, useless mods for the 7.3.
This useless mod goes all the way back to the very beginnings of 7.3 mods, and it's the 10K mod. Putting a 10K resistor on the ICP to make the ICP sensor think that the pressure is lower than it really is, just to ramp it back up. And everybody's running tuning nowadays. Everybody's got a chip. The 10K mod is absolutely useless at that point. Everything's controlled in the tuning. You know, back when we didn't know any better and people were looking for a cheap mod, well, yeah, great. It gave you 15, 20 horsepower, and it gave you a little OPI lift if that's what you were into. But unfortunately, for you, it was a 10-cent mod too.
Tuning mod, right? That's the bazoo. I'm like, I need a low idle. Why? You got half the guys that want a low idle, and then half the guys that complain because they got a lopes. Not smooth enough. I put big injectors in it, and now it goes wop 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 when I start it. Like, well,
let's talk big injectors. This is a big thing for me. And
okay, big injectors.
I heard you bringing a issue. Not even big, but there are people online that don't understand that there are downsides as you go larger on the injector. But the problem is there's people that say, oh no, with the right tuning, you can get giant nozzles to run better than smaller nozzles in every way. 400s on every truck, or 250 200s on every truck. And then they have them, and then they don't run as good. I think people miss out on science.
You gotta know how to drive it.
It's hard. yes,
There's
try
a bed
it.
start.
But it's all give and take
Yes.
when you come to. There's people that say I would never run a 30% nozzle because they're horrible. Well, it's not that they're horrible.
They have their place.
They have their place. And what we have seen, and there's science behind it, I could draw it. I have a whole video on it. The smaller nozzles tend to do better down low, under light throttle conditions, at idle.
Almost always on the dyno, you'll see that.
And yeah, they'll typically, I've seen it. I've tested 30 versus 80, and I've tested single shot versus hybrid. And a single shot 30% nozzle will spool faster, make more torque, and run cleaner down low. No questions asked. So when someone comes to me and says, I want to tow heavy, and my biggest problem is at light throttle going up a hill in overdrive, my EGTs get too hot, 30% nozzle for you. But then guys come to me like, oh, I read online I should get like a 200% nozzle because lower pulse width means less EGTs, and less EGTs is always better in every way.
It means you can get more fuel in a short amount of time. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make better power, because to make that power manageable, you either have to have the right charger, you have to have the right RPM range, and there's so many other factors that come into that just, you got to have the right amount of oil. Like there's
Well, it was tough. That's one of the biggest problems is when you go larger nozzle, you lose your atomization.
yes.
You know, you're putting a few droplets in there, and you can't make that up. You know,
Oh, just trim it out.
Well, you can try to run the pressure up and try to get the atomization up, but now you're fighting because now you can't control your pulse width.
Well, and if you run two people like, oh, well, the shorter the pulse width, the better. No, there's not always better. If you get too short of a pulse width as that piston's coming up, you're spraying that fuel right on the top, and then it's off, and the piston's going back down the other side. Now there's no bullshit. With a little more pulse width, it'll push it down the other side. Yes, EGTs will go up, but EGTs aren't always bad. You when you're trying to make power or tow, you don't want to go up the hill at 800 degrees EGTs. You're not driving the turbo as hard. You're not having a good burn in the cylinder. People freak out about that 1200 degree number. No, you want to be 1100 to 1250. That's where you know it's most efficient. The engine's happy. You're driving the charger. If you were to cool EGTs all the way down to 900, you don't realize that you're not driving the turbo as hard.
Well, then usually if you everything being equal, if you got tuning that's got your EGTs about 900, 950 degrees, 850 degrees, you're overtimed. It's just you've got too much fuel coming in too early, and you have nothing on the backside of it, and that's when blocks get winded.
All bang and no go.
Exactly.
So that's a big thing. He probably not going to watch this dude, but I got a customer right now. He was being a little weird in an email, and tow truck, all I'm going to do is tow. I want to tow heavy, 250, 80s. And he's like, what turbo do you recommend? It's like, oh gosh. I mean, if you put a stage 1 on there and turn it up to a race tune, you're going to blow it up. But if there's a good chance. Yeah. Oh, I won't do that. Okay, well, you can go to stage 1 and just realize that if you turn it up, it's going to blow up the turbo. Well, then what do you suggest? If you're going to turn it up, I'd go with a bigger turbo, but it's not going to tow as well. And he's like, oh, he got really weird about it. And he was like, 250, 80, I went with this, I studied it, and he tried to debate me in an email about how the 80% nozzles are better in every way. And I just turn it way down and run like a baby tune on these bigger injectors. It becomes weird. There's sizing, in my opinion, that works better. Always sizing that works worse. Is there anything outside those rooms? Yeah, Charles, I remember from the old forums. They remember Charles. Try not watching this. He was 400s on everything.
Oh yeah, he was.
He was 400s better in every way.
You can tune them to whatever you want, and he was really big on power.
You could tune them to be drivable, but if you put two of 530s or 238 80s, oh yeah, and both put them on a 400 horsepower tune, I bet you the other trucks would drive way better. The other thing was you get too big a nozzle, you get that haze. You just can't see or to get rid of it. I don't know where that line is.
Again, that comes down to atomization.
About an 80. About an 80. Once you get about an 80,
once you get about 30, you start losing injection pressure, and you can't make it up.
Because there's only you
lose nozzle pressure. Tech too. So you lose nozzle pressure is what you lose, because a hybrid injector is a 5-to-1 injection ratio, and with a 5-to-1 injection ratio and a big nozzle, it's like a garden hose, and you can't get enough pressure behind it, and you can't maintain the pressure behind it either, just because of how the injector is built. It's better than a 7-to-1, so a standard single shot like an A code. That's a 7-to-1 injection ratio. So they're great down low, but they're oil hungry, just like an AD injector. So a 160-30 or an AD 30 will actually make the same horsepower if you can support the oil.
It's AADtune
AAD.
.com.
Okay.
So it's AADtune.com.
Tune, no D, no S. AADtune.com.
Yep. Or you can Google AA Design and Performance and it'll come up.
Google.
So it's Powerstroke.
Friend you on Facebook?
Yep. Facebook, Instagram, they're not loaded on the website because I'm slow and I do it all by myself. So
I mean, you drive.
I don't have a market say, and I drive a 7.3. Yeah, do things slow. If you need to reach us, go powerhungry.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, now on TikTok. We're having quite a lot of fun with TikTok now. Sales or support at gopowerhungry.com. It's all the usual channels. But yeah, you can get all the pertinent information on our website.
And they'll be checking out the comments in this video. If you were watching this video and you have any questions for these guys, comment below. You can send them an email. Go to their website, kcturbos.com, or you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, the Twitter, I guess X is what it's called now, Facebook.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not on Twitter, but
Or have questions,
Twitter.
reach out. We hope you guys have enjoyed the podcast. Please let us know if you guys have anything else you want to see in the future. Anyone else you guys want to have on the show? Or if you have any questions, just reach out to any of us.